Hi and welcome to another episode of Peacemaker TV. In this video we're going to be checking out how we can create a simple landing page, a Mailchimp subscription form, and how we can do all that inside Elementor. We're going to create not only this landing page, we'll also look at how we can create the thank you page and how we can link our subscription form to our Mailchimp account and a specific list. So let's take a look at how we can do all that now inside Elementor. So this is the page we're going to create. As you can see, we've got a simple graphic at the top, a sort of call to action, some information about what they're going to get, the subscription form, and the ability to share that information through onto social media so you can get people to subscribe, and you can also get people to share this subscription page to hopefully boost the people that subscribe to your mailing list. Now all this is done inside Elementor. I'm going to take you through the basics of how we can do all of this. So what we're going to do is we'll go through and we'll create a duplicate of this page, and I'll show you how easy it is to create all these different elements and how we can link it through to Mailchimp. So let's just expand this back out, and let's just jump back out of here and we'll go and create our new page. So let's just jump to the dashboard and we'll come in and create a new page. So let's add a new one and we'll just call this subscribe. A couple of things we want to do before we switch Elementor on. Now I'm using the free GeneratePress child theme. So some of the options you're going to see in this are specific to that particular theme. It's completely free, so you can download that and you can get exactly the same as I'm going to do. Now, because we're creating a landing page, a call to action page, we don't want all the normal things we have like headers. We don't want things like navigation and footer and so on. So the GeneratePress theme gives us great options where we can go in and choose what elements we want to display on the page. So if we look on the right hand side, you can see we can have the option to control the sidebar, the footer widgets, the page builder container, and also some of the things we want to disable on the site. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up first of all to where it says page attributes, and we're going to choose a template. What I'm going to do in there is I'm going to choose the Elementor canvas. Now what that does is that basically gives us a completely blank canvas to work with. We strip out any of these other elements. So we're going to select that. Make sure we've got nothing else on this. We say content, no sidebars. We don't want any footer widgets. We'll leave the page builder container as is, and we'll say we don't want the content title. So that's going to give us pretty much a blank page to work with, which is a great starting point for a landing page. Obviously, you don't need to use that if you don't want to create a landing page. You just want to create a sign-up form. You can just do away with that and just put it into your normal theme. So we'll hit publish because I want to make sure that I commit those changes before we switch Elementor on, because if you don't do that, when it auto saves, most of those options tend to get sort of dropped away. So it's good practice just to sort of hit that, either create your page or to just sort of create a draft. So once we've done that, we're going to click on edit with Elementor. That's going to switch the editor on, and it's going to allow us to start building these sections up. So let's go through and build those sections now. So throughout this tutorial, I'm going to assume that you're kind of familiar with the basics of Elementor. I'm not going to go into detail what each one of these options does, but if you need more information, then I'd recommend checking out some of my other video tutorials. I will, however, focus on the new addition, which is the option to create Mailchimp subscribe forms inside the normal form widget. So without further ado, let's go through. First thing we're going to do is create a graphic header just to put an image in it to make something a little bit interesting. So we'll just drop the image at the top. That gives us the option now to go through and choose what we want to do with this image. So let's add our image in there. I've uploaded this image that I think is kind of relevant to subscribing, so we're going to use that. Set the image size to large. We're going to have the alignment to be centered. I don't want a caption. I don't want to link to anything. If you go to the styles, we can go through if we want to make any tweaks or alterations on there. We could do. For now, I'm going to leave it as it is. It's all looking pretty good, and yeah, I'll leave it as it is. That's pretty cool. Next thing we're going to do is just come down and we're going to go in and we're going to create a call to action. So to do that, we're just going to drop a heading in. You can see that gives us the basic information. Looks a bit rubbish at the moment, so let's just first of all, let's go through and set that up to be a little bit more interesting. So let's just say, let's keep in touch. Now let's go through and style that and set a few of the options up on there. So first things first, make sure it's selected. We're going to come down and we're going to say we want to change the size and so on. So we want this to be, first of all, a heading 1. Size, we could go through and we could set that up just by choosing some of the basic sizes. However, we'll go to the styles in a moment and we'll make sure that we can style it exactly how we want. Just to set that to be center aligned, jump to the styles and we're going to change the text color. We're going to put sort of medium gray in there. Now we're going to enable the typography so we can go through and choose exactly what size and style we're going to use. So first of all, let's go and choose the font family. So for this example, I'm going to use one of the Google fonts, which is the Railway font. and say I want to use that, and we'll set the weight to be 200. We'll set the transform, we'll leave that as is, and the style and so on. We'll just set the line height, we'll boost that up a little bit to give us a bit more space on there, and we'll just push the size up a little bit to make it stand out a bit better. That's looking pretty good. Let's go a little darker on that though. There we go. Under advanced, do we want to do anything? We could create some padding and margins and entrance animations and so on, but for this example, we'll keep it pretty simple and straightforward. So we'll leave that where it is. Come down and we'll go and add a new section now, which is going to give the user some information on what they need to do. So much the same as before, let's just jump back to the widgets, drop a text editor example in there. We could drop it in the box above if we wanted to. It doesn't really matter. We can drop it in there and we can come in and change the text on there. So I've copied and pasted some text in that has a bit more relevance. So let's just put that in there a second. Once you paste that in, let's set that to be center aligned. So let's just expand this out so we can get to the editor, click, and there we go. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to just shrink that down a bit, jump over to styles again, and we're just going to enable the typography one more time. Change the size on that. Again, change the font family. We want this to be Railway. Yeah, that's all looking pretty good. We'll just adjust the line height. There we go. All very simple and straightforward. And this is the beauty of working with something like Elementor, is the fact that you do have a visual way that you can just make these adjustments and see them on screen exactly as you do them. One thing we'll do in a moment once we've got everything set up is we'll come back in and we'll look at how we can configure this to make sure it looks right across the different types of devices, such as a desktop, a tablet and a mobile. At the moment I'm basing this solely on dealing with the desktop, and there are a few things we want to tweak when we jump over to different devices. But like I say, we'll look at that in a moment. So there we go, there's the next part of it. So what we're going to do now is to put an icon in there or to put the sort of subscription form and so on. Okay, so let's just drop an icon in there now that tells someone, kind of draws them down the form. So what we're doing is we're telling them we want to keep in touch, we're saying what you need to do, and then we're going to just drop a little arrow below. So if they're sort of viewing this on a smaller screen, they've got an indicator that is something below they can go down to. So let's click on the icon and we'll just drag that over and drop it onto the screen. You can see that puts the default icon in there. We're going to change that now to something a bit more interesting, a bit more relevant. So let's put in an arrow and we'll say we want an arrow, circle O down. So there we go. So we've got that in there. So now what we could do is we can change the view. So you can see you've got default, stacked, or framed. So we can configure that we want. We'll leave it at default for now. Jump over to style. Let's make that look a little bit bigger. Don't want to go too crazy with this. And we'll set the primary color to be in keeping with everything else. We'll have a nice pale gray in there. If we want to, we can set a hover when we go over the icon itself, but for this example, it doesn't really matter. What we will do though is come down and we'll just choose to put an entrance animation so it draws attention to the arrow. So let's just say we want to have that, and we'll say we'll bounce in down. So there we go. Animation duration, well, we'll say to have that slow. So we've got our animation set up, we've got everything set up in there. So the next thing we want to do now is go through and create the subscription form for Mailchimp. So again, let's just jump back to the different widgets. We're going to scroll down. This time we're going to come to the Pro elements and we're going to grab the form. So we're going to drag that down, drop it in there, and you can see that puts in a basic form for us. So we've got your normal kind of contact form. We've got name, email, and message, and so on. Now we can configure and tweak these if you want to. So the first thing I'm going to do is call this subscribe. Now this doesn't show anything, it just means that I can see the form name, which makes my life just a little bit easier. We don't want name and message for this example, so we're going to get rid of those. We just want the email address on there. So you can see everything is set up in there, column widths and so on. If we wanted to, we could come in and set custom IDs and use short codes, etc. But for this example, we don't really need to. Input size, we leave all those things as they are. Required, yes, we want to show that because they have to put that in to do something. Now we've got the submit button, which we can now configure. So let's make that a bit more relevant to what we're doing, which is a subscription form. So let's just expand that out and get rid of send and change that to subscribe. Again, we could use the size if we want to, or we can come in and we can set column widths, or we can use any of the different options we want on there. So let's just say we want that to be centered. Do we want to change the size of the button itself? So we could go, we've got extra small, large, and so on. So you can see we can configure and tweak that if we want to. We can even go in and add an icon to it. So let's just say we want to put something in there. So as this relates to a send, let's just type in send, and you can see we've got the little paper plane. So we'll drag that onto there, increase the icon spacing a little bit so it's a bit further out, and we'll just say we'll put that after the subscribe button text. So there we go. So what do we want to do now after the action of submitting the form? Well, before we go any further, we need to do one important thing, and that's get an API key from Mailchimp that allows us to link this form to our Mailchimp account and to our Mailchimp list. So let's do that a second. Let's just hit save on here just to make sure that we've got everything saved where we are. We're going to jump over to Mailchimp and I'll show you where you can find that API key quickly and easily. Now, obviously, you need to have a Mailchimp account set up and configured. So obviously, this is beyond the scope of this video tutorial. So as long as you've got that set up, if not, there are tons of tutorials up on YouTube that'll show you how to do it. And Mailchimp is pretty straightforward to set up anyway. Okay, so I'm in Mailchimp now. I've logged into my account, and it doesn't matter which section you're on, as long as you can see the name of your account at the top right-hand corner, you just simply click on there and come down to Profile. And once you're in Profile, you'll see you've got the option for Extras. Click on that, and the option is there for API keys. Once you click on there, you'll see if you don't have an API key set up, you can simply click Create a Key. This will then give you a code similar to this. So all we need to do is copy that, jump back over into Elementor, and you'll see that now where we go down to actions after subscribe, by default it's set up to be email. So what we need to do is specify we want it to be Mailchimp. So we can click, once we click in there, we get the options dropping down for what we can do. And you can see Mailchimp is the third option. So we can click on that, and that will now open up a new tab for Mailchimp. We can also do something else. We can say that we want to do a third thing. We can say we want to redirect. So once it's finished doing whatever we want to do, it'll submit it to Mailchimp, and then it'll redirect it to a page of our choosing. So let's get rid of the email section. And let's just jump down to Mailchimp now. And you can see we now have to put in that API key. So once we paste that in there, give it a second to go over, connect, make sure the API key is all in order. And then what it'll do is it'll pull up and give us a choice of the different lists that we have as part of our Mailchimp account. So we're going to choose Elementor, which is the list that I've created inside that account. So we click on there. If we had groups, we'd have those listed in there. Do we want to apply double opt-in? I would say you definitely want to do that to make sure that anybody that subscribes is choosing to subscribe and they get a confirmation email asking them to say, yes, I subscribe to this. So it is pretty good practice to make sure you do that, if not a requirement. So check that out with Mailchimp or any other mail service you may be using to ensure you need to use double opt-in. So underneath that, you can see we've now got fields map. So email is set up on there. We've got first name and last name, even though we're not using those, so we can ignore those. So we say email, and we can just come down, and you can see that now associates with the field inside the Mailchimp account. So we've got a field in our Mailchimp account in that list for email. So we're just going to click on that, and we leave the other two because we're not using those. Next up, we can jump down to redirect and say, where do you want to go after a successful submission of this particular form and the email has been subscribed to your Mailchimp account? You can see that's set up now, and we've got, in my instance, I've got localhost because I'm dealing with this on my local server, and we've got a page at the end which is thank you, and I've got that already set up. So that's great. We're going to leave that as is. Additional options, you can see we want to apply custom messages. So once the form has been submitted, you want to apply a custom message, and you can see we've got those options below for errors and so on. Again, if you think that's relevant to you and you'd like to do that, by all means do that. We can come over, we can come in and we can style the form if we want to. So you can see we can go through the form, the labels, the fields, the button, how that's displayed and so on. So again, we've got the button set up there. So let's go through and set the typography to be the same as everything else. So we change the font family to be Railway. And we'll leave the weight and everything because that works pretty well on there. But you can see we can easily come in and fine tune and tweak that to make sure it fits in with our theme and our design perfectly. Okay, so finally we've got advanced if you wanted to use that, and again we've got options for backgrounds and borders and entrance animations and so on. All pretty cool. As always, click on the save to make sure that you're saving your work periodically, because the last thing you want to do is lose the work that you're doing. Now finally we're going to put one more thing in there, which is to allow people to share this subscription sign up page via social media. So we're going to do the same as we've done before. We're going to come back into the widgets. We're going to drag a heading down. We're going to drop that in there. We'll come back in and style that in a moment. Jump back into this, and we'll come down and we'll choose the option for share buttons. And we'll just drop that underneath our heading. So there we go. So you can see now we've got those elements in there. So we'll just quickly come in and configure those. So we'll select the title first of all, and we'll say share the love. We'll style that, so we'll leave it at H2, we'll set that to be centered, and we'll go through to style, Switch on typography, choose a color, which is a nice medium gray. As always, as we've done with this, Railway for the font. We've set it to be a nice light font, and we'll just go in and we'll say we want to bump the line height a little bit to give us some space, and we'll just increase the size a little bit. Not too big, so we don't want it to kind of compete with the other elements on the page. So that's all there is to that. And then finally, we're going to come in and we're going to just quickly tweak the icons and everything for our social media. I'll leave the different share buttons we have on there, but obviously you can add more, take out things that you don't think are relevant. We want this to be pretty clean and simple, so I'm going to change this. I just want the icon on there. I want to have these to be rounded, and I want to set them to be centered, so we've got everything nice and neat and tidy. But as always, you can come in and tweak and adjust these to your heart's content to get exactly how you like. And there we go. We've now got our basic page set up. So you can see we've got our header at the top, we've got a call to action, we've got instructions, we've got an arrow that'll animate in to tell us to go through to the section where they've got to fill this information in. We've got to share the love, and we've got the option for sharing buttons underneath as well. So I said save on that. Before we wrap this up, I wanted to just quickly go through and show you why it's such a good practice to check your design on various different screen sizes. So if we just take a look at this, let's minimize this sidebar. Everything looks nice and neatly laid out on the big screen. But let's check it out what it looks like on smaller screens. So if we just jump that over to mobile, for example, various different things now look a little bit wrong. So you can see that we've got this let's keep in touch, the spacing is way out on there, everything is kind of scaled a little bit strangely, so we can easily come back in and tweak all these different elements. So if I click on that when I'm in this mode, you can see we've got the option in various different sections where we can switch between desktop, tablet and mobile. So if we just switch it to tablet, we can check it out in there. That doesn't look quite so bad. Let's go back to the mobile. And what I want to do is just adjust this now so only mobile devices will view it in a different way. So at the moment we've got the font set up, so let's just adjust the size on that to make it a bit more in keeping. That looks a bit better. We can adjust the letter space, the line height, so we can make sure this looks good on a mobile. If we wanted to, we could easily come in and say we wanted to adjust the font itself. We won't worry too much about that. Let's just make it a bit heavier so it stands out better on a mobile. There's the first one. Go to our icon, again making sure we've got the mobile. What we're going to do is come in and we're going to reduce the size of that so it's kind of more in keeping with the scale that we're working with. And finally we'll just come back into this section and we'll do the same again. We'll adjust the size of this and we'll adjust the letter spacing if we want to make everything kind of sit nice and neat. If we want to adjust the line height, we can do that as well. So there we go, we've now configured this to look better on a mobile. Do the same on the share the love section. Again, like I say, we can just adjust the size on there. We can make it darker so it stands out because it's a bit smaller, and we can adjust the line height on there as well. So there we go, that now looks a lot better on a mobile, and when we switch back to being on a desktop, everything goes back to the way it was. Pretty simple and straightforward. So hit save. That's now going to configure that, set everything up with all the page all set up. So now if we just jump over to the actual page itself, we can take a look at what it looks like and how it would work. So let's just jump out of the Elementor editor, so we can click exit and we'll say view page. You can see that now takes us through and shows us our page. There's our animated icon showing us exactly what we need to do to go down the page. Everything is set up the way we want it to be. We click type in our email address, click subscribe, and that'll then subscribe that through into our Mailchimp account. So let's just hit the subscribe button, and once we've done that, it'll go over to the thank you page. And there we go, there's our thank you page. So you can see we've got a similar image, or the same image. We've also got the thank you for subscribing message and the links to the social media icons that we had in the previous page. And there we go. That's how simple it is to create that link between Mailchimp and Elementor. We've also got everything set up now, so we've got a nice landing page. If you're doing some promotion, advertising and so on, you can drive traffic through to your mailing list by using a simple page layout like this that doesn't necessarily fit in with the same design and theme and complexity you have on the rest of your website. Well, I hope you found this video useful. I hope it's showing you how you could easily create up this kind of page. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all the new content we add every single week. If you have any comments or questions or feedback on this video, pop those in the comment section below. And if you're considering purchasing any of the plugins or extensions that we use, including Elementor Pro, please use the links in the description below because it really does help support the channel and help us make great content for you. Anyway, until next time, take care.